So let's look at the draft. I don't know if I went over the Giants draft history before with y'all, but I thought it would be interesting to look at the, because we're talking about Joe Schoen. This is his second draft. His first draft was last season. General managers, the Giants have had 6. Ray Walsh, Andy Robustelli, George Young, Ernie Accorsi, and Dave Gettleman. Dave Gettleman is tied with Andy Robustelli for the worst win percentage among Giants GMs. The best was Ray Walsh from 1947 to 1973 because they had that run in the 50s into the early 60s. 7 playoffs in 27 years, which was only bested by George Young, who was the GM from 79 to 97 and had the second highest winning percentage. 2 championships with 8 playoffs in 19 years. You had Ernie Accorsi from 98 to 06. Around 500 ball, 4 playoffs in 9 years. I think Ernie Accorsi got off to kind of a rough start with the draft and then finished strong. And I think a lot of the picks that he made in the second half of his tenure contributed to the Super Bowls in 07 and 11. So I don't know that you can really, like, Reese has 2 Super Bowls, but one of those, and maybe even both of those, weren't his doing. Like, George Young didn't get his first championship till 86. This is like 6th or 7th year as GM, Giants GM. That's how fucked those late 70s teams were for the Giants and how screwed we were because of Andy Robustelli. 0 playoffs in 5 years. And it only takes 5 years to get off course. Look at, that's why I wrote a long piece about Jerry Reese, because he is the third highest winning percentage, 2 championships, 4 playoffs in 11 years. And you look at those stats and you're like, it's kind of crazy that he didn't get another 4, 5, 8 years, but it's because of like what happened with that team following that second Super Bowl win. I wrote a long article about it, but the mistakes he made primarily in the draft are what caused us our downfall. And it's ironic that we give Dave Gettleman all the shit in the world, and a lot of it's deserved. But I mean, you want to look at the draft history. George Young had I call a hit rate or success rate of 28%, meaning that 57 of the 204 players that he drafted, of those 57, 26 Pro Bowlers and all pros or above average starters, which is 12.7%. So the other remaining count, so that 28% is like contributors, like actually played and contributed to success. And 5 of the top 10 draft classes in Giants history were during George Young's tenure. So, Tiki Barber, Amani Toomer, Jason Sehorn, Jesse Armstead, Michael Strahan, Philippi Sparks, Keith Hamilton, Corey Miller, Rodney Hampton, Howard Cross, Dave Mega, Eric Moore, Jumbo Elliott, Mark Ingram, Stephen Banker, Mark Collins, Eric Howard, Pepper Johnson, Mark Bavaro, Carl Banks, William Roberts, Leonard Marshall, Terry Kennard, Joe Morris, LT, and Mark Haynes. I mean, and that's just the guys that were like Pro Bowlers, all pros. There's still other guys that had significant playing time and contributed. Carl Nelson, Doug Riesenberg, Eric Dorsey, Gary Reasons, Lionel Emmanuel. So like Perry Williams. George Young is, in my estimation, in my lifetime, is the best GM. Like I said, Accorsi, 4 playoffs, 9 seasons. First 4 drafts were pretty bad. No Pro Bowlers, no All Pros. He whiffed a lot. 2001 was brutal. But then he lands Jeremy Shockey, O.C. Umenyiora, David Deal, Phillip Rivers, which he converts into Eli Manning, Chris Snee, and Justin Tuck. With, Matthias Kiwanuka, Corey Webster, Brandon Jacobs, those kind of guys mixed in. So horrible first half start, great second half finish. 36% of the players he drafted, he had a higher hit rate than George Young, but in terms of like quality starters, Pro Bowlers, all pros, it was only 9% of his selections. Jerry Reese, his hit rate was about what George Young's was, 27%. And his Pro Bowlers, all pros, quality starters was at 8%, slightly lower than Ernie Accorsi. But I mean, it is kind of bare bones. Like, it's a lot of quality players, but not a ton of Pro Bowlers or all pros. Steve Smith, Zach Diossi, Jason Pierre-Paul, Odell Beckham Jr., Landon Collins, and Evan Ingram. He also drafted Sterling Shepard, Dalvin Tomlinson. Like, a lot of these guys, and that was the problem with Reese and eventually with Gettleman, is that they just didn't re-sign these dudes. They let a lot of these young talents walk because they weren't like what the players are that we have now. So like Dalvin Tomlinson He had to go. Devin Kennard, they let him walk. Jonathan Hankins, they let him walk. Justin Pugh's fine. Linval Joseph, dude, he went to the Vikings and played really well. But a lot of these guys, they left and did nothing. So it's kind of like, is it Eli Manning who was carrying the team? And then you have Gettleman, who had a hit rate of 22%, which is lower, but his Pro Bowl All-Pro quality starters list is around 9%. Saquon Barkley, Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas. Thomas is in negotiations for an extension. It's just weird to hear and see and think about at this point, because like we're just not used to it of the past decade. Like we just don't extend people. So I'm hoping he can get an extension for the next 15 years. Dexter Lawrence they're working on an extension. Saquon's, we talked about the contract situation there. I mean, that 2018 draft class really turned out to be bad. They traded away BJ Hill, which I think wasn't a great move. I mean, they got this center who started it was like an emergency trade. The guy Billy Price. I don't think the guy made it past 1 year. Meanwhile, BJ Hill goes to the friggin' Super Bowl, the Bengals, I think. Lorenzo Carter went to the Falcons and he just re-upped there. That's not as painful a loss, I don't think, but what could have been? It just seemed like if he stayed healthy, maybe he was coming into his own. Daniel Jones is among that list. I think he is capable of earning a Pro Bowl or two. Julian Love, they let him walk. Darius Slayton, who they just re-signed. Xavier McKinney, who's probably in the preliminary talks about getting an extension. And then Azeez Ojulari, who, if he can stay on the field, can be a Pro Bowler. So for all the shit we give Gettleman, it's like he also, like Reese and Gettleman, like George Young also had the benefit of having friggin' 14 to 15 draft picks per season for a lot of those seasons. And, Gettleman was dealing with 6, 10, 10, 6. So I don't want him as a GM anymore, but I'm not going to look back at him and say he was absolutely 100% awful. If he goes those 4 drafts and whiffs and is 0 for 6 or 10 every season, or 1 of whatever every season, then yeah, dude. Okay. I mean, he is already tied for the worst GM in history, Giants GM history. It's just like, I'm not going to paint him as like this, like fucking supervillain, dude. So Shane, 11 draft picks last year. I would argue that 3 were consistent performers in last season. Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, and Micah McFadden. Bellinger missed a lot of games due to injury. Of course, Wandale goes down for the year against the Lions, but he had some injuries before that. Dane Belton was healthy, but didn't really see the field that much, so I'm not sure why. Cordell Flott came on somewhat stronger in the last portion of the season where he was kind of MIA in the first part. Zudu got hurt. McKeithen got hurt. Beavers got hurt. Davidson got hurt. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And Neal missed a couple games. So it's like half the draft class missed a lot of games last season. So if you're going just based on year one, it's like, whoa, did Shane really whiff on the draft? It's like, well, we'll reevaluate 3 or 4 years from now. So that's important to note. Like, I think that people get lost in the sauce a little bit and they forget that. And so they say, well, we need a guard, or we need an inside linebacker, or we need a whatever. Like, we have those positions, young guys of those positions, talented guys that maybe impressed in camp, like a Darian Beavers, who then we lost for the season for the ACL. So it's nice to get him back, to have Micah McFadden paired with Okereke. So yeah, I mean, Bellinger looks like I don't know that he'll be a Pro Bowler, but he'll be damn close. He'll be in the conversation. He might even be an alternate 1 year. And to pair him with someone like Darren Waller, I just love that duo. I've said it before, I'll say it again. So in terms of like, if we look at primary needs or secondary needs in the draft based on like positional payroll ranks, our offensive line has 15 guys in the mix right now, signed to contracts at $35 million. It takes up around 15% of the cap space. It's ranked 26th in the league. So we know that Andrew Thomas is getting an extension, and we have a few guards in the mix: Zudu, McKeithen, Bredesen, Lemieux, Davis. So interior offensive line is a need, but I don't know that guard is that high up. I think it's, pretty obvious center is the way to go. And then if you want to throw another guard into that Royal Rumble, go for it. Someone will come out on top. Wide receivers are 13 signed contracts for $20 million. Around 9% of the cap, and it's 20th in the league. So, I think that the biggest contract there is Paris Campbell, maybe, because like all the other guys are pretty low. Hodgins is low, like $1 million. Shep is probably league minimum. Crowder's around $1 million. Colin Johnson, so wide receiver, I would think, is a position of need along with center. Linebacker, we have 8 on the squad. Like I already mentioned, we have Beavers coming back. I'd still like to see us pick one up in the draft. $18 million right now committed to linebackers, which is around 8% of the cap. It's 20th, ranked 20th in the league. So I do think that is an area that we could improve upon. And then the secondary, dude. We got 15 dudes in the secondary. I'm not going to name them all, but $36 million. The bulk of that goes to Dory Jackson, and it's as a unit, 16% of the cap, 18th in the league. I mean, you take away a Dory Jackson, and it's like the number plummets. So it's a big indication of like they did sign Bobby McCain to be a safety, to be a somewhat suitable replacement for Julian Love, and then you have Xavier McKinney, who's probably going to get an extension. But other than those three, like Darnay Holmes, Nick McLeod, Amani Aurier, who they just signed, not a lot of big names pulling in big contracts, but so that seems to be another primary need. And then it would just be good to take a look at possibly shoring up the defensive line. Like I said, we've talked multiple times about when Dexter and Lawrence and Leo and Leonard Williams aren't on the field together, that defensive line kind of falls apart. So it'd be nice to have interior defensive linemen. And there's been talk about edge rusher. Yeah, I guess you can never have enough, right? So if you're getting a third and long situation, our version of the NASCAR package would be Ojulari, Thibodeau, insert draft pick. I don't know. Our secondary needs, with the Waller trade, I don't know that tight end is that far up on the list. I still think we do pick one, and there are a couple of good ones in the mid rounds that I think are worthy of our attention. And with the Saquon situation, the contract, like just in case, maybe we should pick up a running back just in case. Am I saying that we should draft Bijan Robinson from Texas in the first round at 25? No, dude, absolutely not. My buddy was giving me shit. My Eagles fan friend was giving me shit because he was like, you should never draft the running back number 2, and running backs never get an extension after their rookie contract or something like that. And I was like, cool, but Saquon's not a running back. He's a legend. So you got to remember that. Like, he's just not your standard run-of-the-mill running back, dude. He had 90 some odd catches, his rookie season? So he's capable of almost 100 catches out of the backfield in addition to 1,000 yards rushing. That's not a running back. it's 2 positions in one. So, part of me is like $16 million, and maybe we can just open up the playbook a little bit for him. So yeah, I think there are a couple of decent running backs in the mid to late rounds that we should definitely put into consideration. And then I think it's time we draft a quarterback. Yep, already. A backup quarterback. Someone in the 5th or 6th round, and that is young and full of vigor and vinegar. Tyrod Taylor seems like he's not made for this world anymore. Like, he's just not cut out for the physical demands of the position anymore. Unless you can put on some kind of shock collar on him so he doesn't scramble, but that's like a huge part of his game. It just feels like it's very tenuous with him as our backup. So I could very easily see them possibly trying to groom a guy this year in the hopes that he becomes a backup next year. So as far as mock drafts go, I have an obsession, an addiction. I have a problem with mock drafts. I get on these mock draft simulators and I just cannot stop, dude. And like, I look up and it's dark and I'm like, whoa, holy shit, I have work tomorrow. So usually I use Pro Football Focus's mock draft simulator, but they've now, I guess, smartened up. They're no longer offering it for free. So not the full version that they used to offer for free, not available for free anymore. Now they're using it as a marketing tool for subscriptions, which from a business standpoint, I get it. But from a consumer standpoint, sucks because I can't do the full 7 rounds now. I think I can do 3 rounds. So I was like, screw that. So no draft grade. But when it was free and full, I was getting like A-, B+. So the way I've approached this is I'm going to go by position. The top, what I've seen from mock drafts and other mock drafts and mock draft experts, who the Giants are taking by position, grouping it that way. Mel Kiper Jr., who has made a living out of this shit, probably the foremost draft expert. DJ Turner, corner from Michigan. His analysis states, I've slotted in wide receivers to the Giants in my previous mock draft, so let's switch gears and go with another position they could target. They could use a player to challenge Aaron Robinson and Cordell Flott on the other side of Adoree Jackson. By the way, I've completely forgotten about Aaron Robinson. Oh boy. A-Rob. My bad. But I mean, what a story if he could come back and actually perform, but I think Flott might have the edge there. Turner is a hot name in the league right now, largely because scouts and execs went back to the tape after his 4.26 second 40-yard dash at the combine. That was the 4th fastest time since 2003. 5'11", 178, which is a size I'm not fond of. Turner isn't very big. But he has some versatility. He played outside in the slot for the Wolverines, and New York ranked 25th in NFL with 19 takeaways last season. Yes, we did not pick off the ball. So a ball hawk is very, like, if I see the word ball hawk in any of this analysis, I'm like highlighting, bold, underline, italics, and then increasing the font. Todd McShay, Mel Kiper's adversary, picked Emmanuel Forbes, corner from Mississippi State. Bulldogs and Todd's analysis is Forbes is lean, 6'1", 166. Again, it feels a little light, but he has great speed and fantastic instincts and coverage. Giants blitzed more than any other team last season, but didn't have many ball hawks in the secondary to take advantage. Forbes would feast on mistakes forced by that pressure. Again, I just saw the word ball hawk. So while he's undersized, I could be in. I don't know why, but I love big corners. Like my mind immediately goes to when we had Jason Sehorn and Dave Thomas. They were both like over 6 foot. Like Sehorn was like 6'2" or 6'3". Like they just, against the bigger wideouts, they just like would physically dominate. But again, I think the league, obviously the league has friggin' changed. Derp. It's been 20 years. But yeah, so it's more of a passing game now. Got it. And there are more, and size is not so much of a detractor for offenses anymore. I mean, you're seeing like, you look at someone, I guess would the Chiefs be a good example? There's a lot of wideouts that are on the smaller size, but are just quick as fuck. Precise route runners that are speedy and agile and fast. And so, big corners are not the name of the game anymore. So I got to get that out of my head, dude. But I miss the days of being able to just jam guys at the line of scrimmage and just being able to physically dominate. But that's just not the recipe for success anymore. Thanks, Colonel Sanders. Michael Renner, Pro Football Focus, also has Emmanuel Forbes. He says, you can't have enough talent in the secondary when you blitz as much as the defensive coordinator Wink Martindale wants to. When you blitz that much, you want ball hawks on the back end. Who better to add to the mix than the FBS leader in pick sixes, dude? I mean, the 160 pounds, 66 pounds kind of worries me yet again. But then again, how many guys have you seen come to the league that are probably considered undersized that just get into the program and beef up? They're no longer having to live that college lifestyle. They now have money. They can afford food. They don't have to do campus food all the time. And maybe a trainer, a nutritionist, so I think he can pack on some pounds. And the fact that he's a ball hawk that pick sixes, dude. I miss the days of like Jackrabbit and DRC. I know it's insane to say because it was such a tumultuous time that ended up being toxic. But damn, man. It is cool to watch us score 6 on a pick. So Will Brinson, CBS Sports, he has Joey Porter Jr., corner from Penn State. His analysis is the Giants focused on the trenches last year in the draft, and getting Daniel Jones a weapon here would work fine as well, but instead they had some more talent on the back end. Riveting. Josh Edwards, also of CBS Sports, think they're going to go Brian Branch, safety from Alabama. His analysis: the Giants may have to trade up the board a bit to secure one of the top corners in the class. Yes. They already missed the initial run at the position. Okay. Instead, they take an intelligent, versatile safety capable of getting that defense lined up. Intriguing, because I've also seen him listed as a corner. So maybe that fits more the Julian Love mold, where Julian Love was playing corner but also safety. I don't know. Lance Zierlein agrees. Lance Zierlein of NFL Media also has Brian Branch. He says the smart, tough, and consistent Branch can play nickel or step right into the safety spot that opened up with the free agent departure of Julian Love. Thanks, Lance. I just said that. Damian Parson of Draft Network and Jack McKessie of Draft Network. They both got Cam Smith, corner from South Carolina. Damian says Smith is a tremendous competitor that is battle-tested playing the SEC's twitchy movements and sticky coverage abilities will be coveted when New York covers the receivers in the division. Twitchy and sticky. I freaking love that. I'm not high twitch, not fast twitch. I don't know if you heard the word. I'm neither of those. Very slow twitch. I don't think I've ever twitched. I'm very sticky though, surprisingly, for different reasons. So McKessie said the Giants need a lot of things to bolster their roster on both sides of the ball. So there are several directions they can go here in the mock draft. Okay, thanks, dude. 3 of the top receivers off the board. They go for a different premium position of need. They really need a CB1 that can lock down opposing receivers. Division full of talent. I mean, yeah, dude, it's just like out of control. CeeDee Lamb. Those jokers, the Batmen of Philadelphia. Ugh, I can't even bring myself to say their names. And the Commanders have some good receivers too, dude. So Cam Smith could be that guy for them as a dog in coverage. Oh, a dog, man. Between Cam Smith, he's a dog who's twitchy and sticky. Between him and Emmanuel Forbes, who do you go with, dude? Ooh, love to be in that war room. He's a smooth mover with good footwork and ball skills that have allowed him to thrive in man coverage. Again, I like dudes that can play man coverage. It feels like we've struggled in man coverage for so long now. It's like, okay, we got a Dory in man coverage, and I think he's done a fairly decent job, minus 1 or 2 series per game, where he can follow the number 1 on the other side and do his part and do well. I think he shut down Justin Jefferson. We're just crap on the other side of the ball. So it's like we have to play a little man zone combo package. And, it's just a lot of young talent in the secondary. So let's move on to the offensive line. I guess if you're gun to my head, Cam Smith or Emmanuel Forbes, I think I'd go Emmanuel Forbes. The FBS leader in 6 picks. That's like, oh boy, it's hard to ignore. So let's move on to the offensive line, specifically the inter-offensive line, really ultra specifically the center position. Bucky Brooks of NFL.com said the pick is John Michael Schmitz from Minnesota. His analysis is beefing up the interior of the offensive line is critical to helping the recently extended Daniel Jones flourish as a franchise quarterback. Oh, Bucky! Huh. Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports, also has John Michael Schmitz saying there are several good centers in this class. Schmitz, Luke Weipler, Joe Tippmann, Steve Avila. And we have day 2 grades on all of them. The Giants have a glaring need in the middle of the offensive line, so they address it here. I think we could get, I mean, he's projected to go in the 2nd round. We have the 2nd round pick at 57. Will he be around at 57 to pick? That's a big question. So I think fans would get really upset if we went center at our 1st round at 25. Here's the rub. The rest of the league knows that we're desperate for a center. So do we really want to trade up and give up a fortune? I mean, we do have a ton of picks this year. I think we have 10 picks, right? So do we want to give up a lot of picks this year, next year to go up to get a center? But if that center's a franchise center, dude, like 10 years, we're talking like Sean O'Hara 2.0-ish, Bart Oates. We haven't really had, Sean O'Hara was great, but like, I don't think he wasn't Bart Oates. Bart Oates played a fucking long time. Or did he? I think he was 85 to 90, 91, 92. Anyway, it'd be nice to have the same starting center for 5 or more years. That'd be great. We haven't had that in a long time. We haven't had an starting interior linebacker for more than 4 or 5 years, like we did with Antonio Pierce. Now we got Bobby Okereke. Like to see that certain positions that have been just a revolving door of people it's starting to stabilize. I think that's a sign of good management. Anyway, Jamie Eisner, Draft Network, also has John Michael Schmitz, saying he's a powerful interior offensive lineman who could play guard or center. Thanks. That's like really deep, incisive shit. Pete Prisco, CBS Sports, also had JMS. They have a need at center, and Schmitz is considered the best of a good class. They could go corner here. Emmanuel Forbes or Cam Smith, like I just mentioned. But they opt to help out Daniel Jones in the line. Again, I don't think John Michael Schmitz is available in the second round. But then, so maybe, okay, you don't get the top center, but it seems like Joe Tippmann, who we're about to talk about, could be available at 57. And you can still get a corner with your first pick. Whereas I don't know you're going to get that. Are you going to get a starter at corner in the second round? I don't know. So Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Media picked Joe Tippmann. Joe Tippmann from Wisconsin, the Badgers, saying the Giants did a nice job adding some much-needed speed to the skill positions of free agency. Tippmann would team up with two young, talented offensive tackles to protect Daniel Jones for the foreseeable future. Ian Cummings, Pro Football Network, also had Joe Tippmann, saying Joe should be a definite combine winner, and he could be a surprise first-round pick as a result. Projected 10-yard split in the 1.6 range at 6'6", 320. Whoa, dude. Elite size, power, and athleticism. Could put him at center or guard. But he could slide in the first round. Ew. Chris Trapasso, CBS Sports, also had Joe Tippmann, saying he's an athletic blocker at center that the Giants very much need entering year 2 of the Brian Daboll era. So who are you picking? Joe Tippmann or John Michael Schmitz? Is there a scenario where we can get both a corner and a center, like our number 1 corner or our CB2, but our number 1 on the board corner, whether it be Emmanuel Forbes or Cam Smith and John Michael Schmitz or Joe Tippmann? Like, it doesn't seem like we're going to, like, either Schmitz or Tippmann are going to be around at 57. So is there a scenario where Shane trades up from his second round pick after the first round pick? Because I don't see, like, trade up to get a wideout when you can get a wide, like, it's a very deep wide receiver class, and there are a lot of wide, like, and I said this in a text to my buddy. Yes, some teams have a number 1 wideout who's their first round pick, who's like in the first half of the first round, whatever. You look at something like the Chiefs, a lot of those wideouts are second, third, fourth, fifth round, draft picks. The Bills, second, third, fourth, fifth round. So I think there's still a tremendous amount of value in rounds 2 through 5. And you have, I mean, again, knock on wood, barring injuries, setbacks, stuff like that, the wide receiver crew you have is not as bad and as garbage as people say it is. Shepard, Paris Campbell, Crowder, Hodgins, Slayton. So no, amongst those guys, no one's screaming wide receiver 1 out of those 4 or 5 guys. But like, and this is going back a long ways. The 2 most recent Super Bowls, yes, we had Monty Toomer, Plaxico Burress, Steve Smith, and we had Manningham, Nix, and Cruz for the second one. So yeah, those. But like looking at those receivers, other than maybe Plaxico, like Amani was not an All-Pro Pro Bowler. He was just a really good, consistent, reliable guy. Manningham, Nix, and Cruz. Like Cruz was a Pro Bowler, but Manningham and Nix, Nix should have been a Pro Bowler, All-Pro, but like, injuries and whatnot. But Manningham wasn't an All-Pro Pro Bowler. So in my head, it's like we have a good, scrappy bunch of guys that can produce that, we saw them get manhandled against the Eagles, but I think that was more of a case of like our offensive line didn't hold up. Our defense fell apart. There was a lot of blame to go around for that game. So I don't know if that's a good example, but then you look at them against the Vikings. I don't know. I wouldn't be pissed if we didn't go wide receiver 1 or 2. I just like the idea of bolstering that secondary because we saw what happens when, I think McLeod and Fabian did a great job of filling in for Adoree when he went down. But at the same time, it's just thin. It's just so razor thin back there. And I don't have a lot of confidence. They overperformed last year for sure. And that large part of that is thanks to Wink Martindale. But I don't know that you can roll the dice on that on year 2. And I think to get a starter, day 1 starter, opposite Adoree is paramount. I just think it's so important. And then center is the next important. Wide receiver, yes, there are a lot of guys on 1-year deals, right? So, the wide receiver room looks already looks pretty different from last season. It's going to look even more different the year after that, I think. So, yes, wide receiver is for sure a need, and they have to draft. I'm going to say they're going to draft 2, maybe even 3 receivers. I wouldn't be angry at that. I wouldn't be mad at that. But I think you go one. If you go wide receiver at 1, then what do you go with 2? Is this another case of like, okay, we're going to trade up and try, you just have to try and trade up each time because you're going to miss out on these guys that can be day 1 starters. Like if you go wide receiver 1, you lose out on Forbes and Smith. I don't know that there are a ton of cornerbacks beyond that could be starters right off the bat. And then say you would have to go and say you want to go center with your second pick, but Schmitz and Tippmann are gone. I guess you have, was it Whippler and Avila. So I guess the depth at center is a little bit better. But if you go corner second round, you don't have a day 1 starter at center. Odds are you won't have a day 1 starter at center. So it's like, I'd rather just get the day 1 starter at center, day 1 starter at corner, and then we can address wide receiver position. Is that so wrong? Speaking of wide receivers, and this is why it's I'm not popular opinion that I have this. It's not popular at all. And it's a pretty cold take. And it's what I just described, or my preference, is not going to happen because it seems like everyone is mocking Jordan Addison, USC wide receiver, to the Giants. Out of all the mock draft roundups, looking at all the mock drafts from all the experts, Jordan Addison is the most selected. Dane's analysis is the Giants wide receiver situation is looking up thanks to the surprising play of Isaiah Hodgins, Wan'Dale Robinson returning from injury, and now Paris Campbell's addition, but in no way should that stop New York from continuing to add playmakers if it has a first-round grade on a receiver here. Rhett Lewis, NFL Network, says the run on receivers continues with team need and positional values, and lining here at number 25, Addison, the smoothest route runner in this class, will give Daniel Jones someone he could trust to get open consistently on the perimeter. And honestly, that's the key right there. That's the key phrase: trust and get open consistently on the perimeter, which is something that there are some games where it's just they're struggling. They can't get free. There's no separation. Kyle Krabs, which sounds like Mr. Krabs' son from SpongeBob SquarePants from the Draft Network, he says this about Jordan: this is a home run style fit and a home run need filled here. Wrong sport. Gordon McGinnis, Pro Football Focus, says that despite a somewhat disappointing showing at the NFL Combine, Addison will likely hear his name called the back end of round 1, showcasing a safe pair of hands. He dropped just 2 of 61 catchable passes. That's huge because we know Slayton gets the drops here and there. Even Hodgins can drop. So it's like to have a guy that just doesn't drop the ball, like a Sterling Shepard. Like if Sterling Shepard stays healthy for 17 games, I'm playing the friggin' lottery, dude. And I'm winning. He's basically saying what I'm saying. Like he's gambling. Gordon McGinnis is gambling, and he's thinking that one of Whippler, Tippmann, or Schmitz will be available in the second round. If we get Luke Whippler, are we going to be super bummed? Yeah. I mean, not super bummed, but it's like disappointing. Like, damn, we couldn't get Schmitz or Tippmann, 1 or 2. But Whippler post 80 plus PFF grades in both pass protection and run blocker last season. So maybe he's like, he's the dark horse in that group. ESPN's Matt Miller has us picking Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee. His analysis is Hyatt exploded onto the scene in Tennessee's vertical tempo offense, catching 67 passes for almost 1,300 yards and 15 touches, all while averaging a clean 18.9 yards a catch. Certified deep threat, run a low 4.3 second range in the 4-yard dash. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't that be nice to have someone like Slayton running deep on one side and then Hyatt running deep on the other side? I just don't think all signs indicate or point to the fact that Hyatt will not be available at 25. Do you want to trade up to get him? No. Pick the best receiver at your spot. And then there's a host of experts here that have Boston College Eagles wide receiver Zay Flowers. What a great name. Charles Davis, NFL Media, says, help Daniel Jones, scream the Big Blue faithful. GM Joe Shane listens and head coach Brian Dable applauds. Cynthia Freeland of NFL Network, also Zay Flowers. I'm sticking with Flowers as the Giants pick, with the receiver just edging out the remaining corners. Eric Edholm, NFL.com, says Flowers gives the Giants a true over-the-top threat who is also capable of working underneath. Daniel Jones should have an array of weapons at his disposal now. Yeah, and so that's the goal here, right? Is like, I'd rather have a deep threat. That'd be nice. Stretch the offense. I mean, obviously we'll have to bolster the offensive line to give Daniel Jones the time to throw, because even when Slayton did get open deep last year, Jones was already running for his life. So that's why I always thought the priority should be, let's fix the offensive line, which we're in year 13 of trying to do. Or 12, 11. I don't know. It's been a long. It's on par with the timeline for the friggin' Xanadu Dream Project, wherever the American Dream thing is, right by Giant Stadium, MetLife. What a weird, yeah. Keith Sanchez, Draft Network, also has Zay Flowers saying the Giants made one of the biggest splashes free agency period trading for Darren Waller. They follow up here drafting Zay Flowers, explosive player, can align in multiple positions. Should immediately give Jones a target to throw the ball to, as he's a guy that can take a 5-yard pass for 50 yards. Shades of Mr. Beckham Jr. That's intriguing, and might be a better fit short term than a deep threat. Like I mentioned, I don't know that Jones is going to have the time. I don't have the stats on hand, but he was one of the most pressured quarterbacks in the NFL last year and didn't have a whole lot of time to throw. So, there was a lot of scheming by Kafka to give him that additional time to find the open guy. So maybe someone like Zay Flowers is what the doctor ordered. Trevor Sakema, Pro Football Focus. The Giants would probably like to get a bigger body wide receiver. What they really need is just more playmaking ability. Small in size, but he brings electric play styles and outside receiver and slot player. Where have I seen this before? Friggin' Kadarius Toney. Electric, looks like a video game on steroids, and it's like, okay, I don't know. How about a guy that can just run past defenders and pull away? Jordan Reed of ESPN also has Zay Flowers. Flowers would be an explosive addition, not very big, 5'9", 182. Yikes. Although that immediately makes me think of, I guess, Tyreek Hill, but also Dante Hall, the human joystick. Ever heard? Capable of making plays from the slot and on the outside. He's the strength profile, run after reception ability, and catch radius to be a creative player. Not only has alignment versatility, but a sudden change player, completely alter the outlook of games in one play. Yeah, I dig that. I mean, that's essentially Kadarius Toney. So, and Kafka's creative guy, as is Dable. And so the alignment versatility kind of sticks out to me as well. God, the deep threat's so sexy. But this is like, it's maybe just a better fit. Now leaning towards Flowers. Fuck, man. Danny Kelly of The Ringer has us going with Quentin Johnston from TCU. Johnson gives the team some size and yak on the outside. Should make DJ's life a bit easier. Keith Stackpole, CBS Sports, says Quentin, the new regime gets Daniel Jones another big-bodied wide receiver, the penchant for the big play. So yeah, Isaiah Hodgins right now, big body guy, was essentially what Kenny Golladay was supposed to be. And we got him for a lot cheaper and a lot younger. And Quentin Johnston, be good to have another big body in the field. I just like them big bodies, bro. Ryan Fowler of Draft Network says that Quentin is a natural hands catcher, but checks off of a ton of the boxes you look for in a top weapon. Can threaten every level of the defense. Cool. Draft Network's Brentley Weissman says Johnson is a height, weight, speed player who excels as a deep ball specialist who would fit in very well as a field stretcher to open up the middle of the field for Waller and company. So many options, dude. Bellinger, Waller, Wan'Dale, Darius, Shep, Paris, Isaiah. Like, you got to feel good about, the offense already with guys that a lot of people were calling practice squad guys or not final roster, 53-man roster guys. Giants scored more points last year, which is what we were begging them to do. So you can only imagine if we retain that core, upgrade in free agency and the draft, we're looking at guaranteed 20 plus points a game. 25 plus points a game? 30 plus? No, but yeah, maybe 30 plus a game. James Fergoza from Pro Football Network has us picking Josh Downs. UNC Tar Heels wide receiver who can carve defenses up in space and generate downfield plays from the slot. Another slot guy. Feels like we have enough slot guys. Am I wrong? Joe Marino of Draft Network, he has us going with Jackson Smith, Ohio State Buckeyes wide out. Adding a presence like Jackson to go with emerging Isaiah Hodgins would allow the offense to stabilize and take off in year 2. But my assumption is he's not going to be on the board by the time our pick comes around. So the last positional group, and I'm going to cover defensive linebacker Sam Monson, who's a sweet avatar on Twitter, Ultimate Warrior, and Steve Palazzolo, Pro Football Focus, have us going with Nolan Smith, an edge rusher from the Georgia Bulldogs. He's unique in so many ways with a lot of projectable NFL traits. He'll likely be a more productive pass rusher in the NFL than he was at Georgia. And your immediate thought is like, what? I don't think this is going to be our number 1 pick. I could be wrong. But there was a period there where it's like, okay, Wink's blitzing the shit out of the other team. And we did get a fair amount of sacks from second, third level players, like, or I should say third level players, corners and safeties. We're getting a decent amount of sacks. So are Ojulari and Thibodeau enough to generate that pass rush? And the jury is, I mean, they're saying, PFF is saying that no, you need to add more to that. So some other names that I've seen tossed around: Oregon cornerback Christian Gonzalez, Texas safety Antonio Johnson. I didn't mention this, but Forbes was ranked as the number 2 cornerback in his class. Confident playmaking, good physical traits, rare ball skills, strong production. 33rd team, who just gave that previous ranking, they ranked Joe Tippmann, the center, as the number 1 center in the draft class. Unusually tall, good strength, toughness, intelligence, lower body tightness, though. Good job getting out in space, good footwork, blah, blah, blah. Cedric Tillman, a wide receiver from Tennessee, the Volunteers. He's a name to keep in your dome there. If we do miss on a lot of the top receivers in round 1, I think this might be a round 2 or round 3 pick. Another round 2 pick possibility is Jack Campbell, 250 pounds inside linebacker. Now I got my gears going, and it's like, you can't not go wide receiver at 1 and 2, right? So if we go wide receiver at 1, maybe you can go Jack Campbell at 2, but then you're missing out on center unless you make some trades. I think you really got to go corner center. But yeah, those wide receivers, dude. So man, I guess we're going to go wide receiver 1. But then you got to go center 2, dude. Oh boy. Round 3, I had, there was Iowa tight end Sam Laporta or Aya Porter. Sidney Brown, a safety from Illinois. Tulane linebacker Dorian Williams. Round 4, there's Texas linebacker DeMarvion Overshone. Louisiana corner Miles Brooks, or Boise State safety J.L. Skinner. Round 5 I only had 2 guys. Luke Schoonmaker, tight end from Michigan. I don't know, just underrated release skills. Well, it does well with his footwork and hand-to-hand, quickness, acceleration, long speed to beat safeties, excellent pass catcher, also excellent after the catch. Known best for his blocking. Versatile blocker. His greatest weakness is perimeter blocking, but he's the best all-around tight end in the class. And to get him in round 5, ooh, baby, that's pretty sexy. And then Oregon corner Rezone Wright is another guy to look for in round 5. How about Chandler Zavala, offensive guard, NC State, Clayton Tune. And this is where I start to get in playing around with quarterbacks, is in round 5, 6. Houston quarterback Clayton Tune. Michigan interior offensive lineman Olusegun Olawatami, or Texas D lineman Moro Ajomo. In round 6, I have us looking at Max Duggan, TCU quarterback, which would be pretty funny. I don't see him, like, I only really watched him in the national championship game, so it's not really fair, my assessment. But I would say I don't see him doing well at the professional level, but I see him having like a Gardner Minshew moment there. Like there's a Max Mania streak somewhere in the mix. Do I see him as like a valid long-term backup quarterback? I don't know, not at this point. But then again, never say never. UAB running back Dwayne McBride is another guy I have my eye on in round 6. And then Yaya Diaby, Louisville edge. That's an A+ pick from PFF back when I did it, when it was free and it was full. So I like taking, I mean, you're seeing what's happening here. We got 10 picks. I think you go at least 2 corners, at least 2 wide receivers, a center, that's 5 picks. I would go another linebacker, that's 6. I would go a tight end, that's a 7. I go a running back, that's 8. I go quarterback, that's 9. And then maybe 10 is a kicker or a punter. I'm going to see, a punter. No, I don't think you want to waste a running draft pick there. If we hadn't re-signed what's-his-face, the hammer, I guess we should have gone with a punter in the 7th round. But let's talk about the 7th round. Kentucky running back Chris Rodriguez Jr., Texas D tackle Keandre Coburn, Kentucky running back Chris Rodriguez Jr. Got an A+ for that pick, and then an F+ for that delivery. Vanderbilt linebacker Anthony Orji. Oh, I really hope it's Orji. Baylor offensive tackle Connor Galvin, and Pittsburgh offensive tackle Carter Warren. So that could be the 10th spot is a tackle. I just don't know that I have a lot of faith. Like if Neal goes down, if Thomas, God forbid, goes down, I don't know that the team is really sold on Matt Peart. And who was the other guy that they brought in? I think he actually played more than Peart. So I think that tackle might be an area they want to address as well. The backup tackle who could maybe play guard. Mm-hmm. And then in the 7th round, more 7th round picks. Oh, the last 7th round pick that I think they might go with, like if we go with 2 or 3 wide receivers in the draft, is this guy that they've been talking about. Feels like a lot of people are talking about. Princeton wide receiver Andre Iosivas. He's been on the radar for a while. Joe Shane says he's known about him since early December, told the New York Daily News, and that Odell's agent brought him up. And I thought he showed really well yesterday. Big, good-looking kid, caught the bell well. So a lot of athleticism and a ton of upside. It could be something worth taking a shot on. So that's the 2023 New York Giants NFL Draft preview. It was a doozy. I hope you enjoyed it.